Sounds good.
Okay, so we're ready to call this meeting to order.
Yes, you can go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so, all right, I need an adoption of the minutes for the Appellate's committee meetings from April 11th. I don't know where everybody went.
I'll move that, Brian. It's John.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't see anybody. There you are. I can see John. Okay, so.
I can second for you.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, approval of the agenda. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Why do I keep losing this?
Councillor Nyman, are you able to mute your microphone? We're just getting a lot of background noise. Thanks.
I can't see anybody. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, if you just want to ask for the approval of the agenda, I can tell you who approves, who moves and seconds.
Yeah, because I can't see anything. I don't know why. So we got the approval of agenda done. Okay.
Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Okay, Sam Branderhorst and Warden Wise.
Okay, nice. Okay, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof?
None seen.
None seen. Okay. Matters for consideration. We've got the Homeless Prevention Program Investment Plan. And I believe that's prepared by Scott Robertson. Is Scott with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Hey, there you are. Nice
Oh,
to
you
see
can
you,
see
Scott.
me. All right. Hey,
I don't know what happened there. Good. Okay. All right, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing asks us to provide to them in advance what we're going to do with the homelessness prevention program, in so much as we need to divide this into different categories. So there's, if you kind of go to, I think it's towards the bottom of page 2, there's support administration that we take there, supportive housing. So supportive housing mainly funds our transitional housing program. Community outreach and support services, that's funding that we generally give to our community partners that help us in providing solutions to homelessness. So this would be places like the Salvation Army, Addictions and Mental Health Services, the Napanian Area Community Health Center, to Prince Edward County, things like that. Housing assistance, this number is really bumped up because we moved our rent supplement program into there. So that's like almost $1.5 million, and about a little over 700,000 of that is to operate our rent supplement program, which is about 145 units. And then the emergency shelter solutions, that's for the different places we have. There's Leeward House in Prince Edward County, Morning Star Mission in Lennox and Addington County, and it also funds our emergency housing through our motel program.
All right. So do I just get a motion to receive this report then?
I have questions, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Sure, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And is it just easier for us to say we have a question, just so then if you can see us or hear us?
Yeah, because I can see you talking to you, but I can't see any other hands. So
yeah, no worries. We can work around that. So my first question is, This is a great report, Scott. Always fun to read where money's going. I do have a couple questions. Surprise,
Sure.
surprise. But my first that I am interested in is and maybe this is kind of foreshadowing later on the agenda, is never mind, I'll hold it for later. But specifically, where, if any, money that might go to helping landlords and train landlords with dealing with the tenant issues, might that land in this support system? Would that be in housing assistance? Would that be?
That comes out of community outreach and support. And we fund a position with Prince Edward County. I may get it's like housing support and liaison. I know housing and liaison are there, and my apologies to Ellis that I'm not getting that title right, but it's Judith, and she's helping tenants, but she's also helping landlords navigate through what can sometimes be a confusing housing system.
Mm-hmm. No, I know you can't write down every individual thing, so it's always nice to double check.
And we actually have a similar position that we funded in Lennox and Addington County. And they actually, just for an update, they actually started this Monday. They're doing training and they're coming in June 19th to meet with the staff, and we're going to connect them with some landlords, and they'll eventually have some listings that are as affordable as they can find. And people will be able to go there as a resource, the same as they're doing already in Prince Edward County.
That's great. And can I have one follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Thanks. Can you just go into a little bit more detail about the housing assistance and the $1.4 million breakdown? Just because that's a lot of money. And as your post says, or sorry, not your post, your report says, it helped 595 households, which
Yes,
secure
so-
housing, which is amazing. But I just would like a little bit more information on that because it's a large
Sure.
number.
So we do lots and lots of work with people who are homeless, but we might do even more work with people who are right at the edge of being homeless. I know I've said this before, and it's kind of weird, the best way to prevent homelessness is to not let people get homeless in the first place. And I'd get that as a single stat. But if somebody becomes homeless, then if you find them housing, to become homeless again, I don't say it's easy, but it's not as difficult. So what we do, we those 595 people that we helped, that's through a homelessness prevention benefit. So if somebody can't pay rent, or they have to choose between their utility bill or rent, we can help them out with their utility bill or rent. We occasionally help out with vehicle repairs for people that are employed, but usually, the vehicle repairs were immediate. They paid for that, and then we help them out with rent later on. So a big chunk of that money is used for that, and about $600,000, I believe, or 650 that we've earmarked for that program, and then another $700,000 in that program from the housing assistance is to cover those rent supplements. And if you recall, the rent supplements, we were covering them from a different program, Canada Ontario Community Housing Initiative and Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, but those funds were delayed. So we had to find another mechanism to fund them. Now, and this is getting a little bit ahead on the agenda, but if it looks like at some point we will get access to the COCHI and OFI funds. They may have different rules, but if we can use them for rent supplements, we may do that. That's like coming to appellate committee in the future, and hopefully I'll have good news. But anyway, that's just back to the housing assistance. It's mainly those homelessness prevention benefits, and those benefits are delivered by Pellis's caseworkers, and that's through all of our office, Picton, Napanee, Amherstview, and Northbrook. And so that's just people coming in, and sometimes that's they need $100 help out on a hydro bill. And sometimes too, if somebody's found housing, they maybe have first month's rent, but the landlord requires last month. So we can help them out with last month's rent as well. through that program.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, it's Steve Ferguson. I've got a question as well, if
Yeah.
you don't mind,
Sure.
to Scott. Thanks for the report, Scott. Everybody should be aware that we're very pleased that Leeward House is now open and seemingly very successful. But I don't see any mention of it in the report. Am I missing something here? I mean, it was a bold step on our part to partner with Base 31 to now secure accommodation for 10 people. So I'm just want to make sure that attention is paid to that.
Yeah,
because we think it's not just good for the people that are now securely housed, but it's a model that may have applications elsewhere.
Yeah, actually in the homelessness prevention program investment plan, I don't think I mentioned any specific program, but captured in the emergency shelter. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, through you to
Yes, go ahead.
the rest of the committee. Sorry about that. I missed that on the first round. My apologies. So the emergency shelter solutions, that includes everything we cover with that. So that would include Leeward House, Morningstar Mission, and our motel program. I don't think I may mention any specific program in here in this report, but
No, I know.
I may in another report when we're talking about emergency housing solutions, Leeward House could be mentioned.
Yeah, okay. It's just good to know where it's located, and that was the basis of the question. So, under the emergency shelter solutions. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So we'll get a good motion to note and receive.
There is a staff recommendation included in this one, if you'd like me to read it.
Sure.
Okay, so it's that the May 24th staff report, homelessness prevention program investment plan be noted and received, and further that the homelessness prevention program investment plan be approved by the Pellis Committee, and further that Pellis staff be authorized to reallocate program funds between the program components in response to local needs and to ensure full utilization of allocations.
Okay. So we have a staff recommendation. Does anybody want to?
I'll move it.
Get a mover? Do we have a seconder?
Where's there it is. Okay.
This is
I can second.
okay. So the mover, seconder, all in favor? That motion is carried, I guess. I know what I'm voting for the next meeting. In person, in faces. My God, this is ridiculous. Okay, sorry, my own opinion. So moving on to number 2, the housing assessment resource tools. And that would be Scott again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was a sort of a follow-up from, we put out an RFP for a housing needs study, and I think it had 8 deliverables, and we got a response from Housing Assessment Resource Tools, or HART. It's a group based out of connected with the University of British Columbia, and they called us and said, hey, we can do your first 4 deliverables for free because they're funded by CMHC to provide data like this. So it took a little longer than we thought it might take them, but I'll go back to it was free. And actually, it's an excellent report. So what they've taken is basically information from Statistics Canada, and that includes income information, demographics, family type, looking at the existing housing type available and looking at future need. And so they've projected to 2031. It's a huge report with lots and lots of data. And I will talk about some of the highlights here in a second, but the next step, I guess, is to use this document, put out for another RFP where a person will, the successful consultant would be using this report to back up some of the statistical information. But I hit a few highlights here. So Lennox and Addington County needs to create almost 1,600 new homes by 2031. Prince Edward County, it's 530 new homes, a net of 530 new homes. It's a really weird twist in that it's projecting 800 new one-bedrooms and a reduction in other bedroom sizes. Probably one of the most startling parts of the report for me when I'm reading through it. And I don't know if any of you have read through the whole thing, but there's lots and lots of data to look at and core need housing and all this stuff. But just at this top of page 2, I think, of the report, just the area median household income. So this isn't personal income, this is everybody in the home. And then just the disparity, as high as 81,000 in Loyalist Township. And the other 4 places are kind of close, but the other 3, but Addington Highlands is significantly lower with 43,200. Sorry, I should have added when I was talking about this report, one of the things we asked them to do is to separate the information for the whole Pellis area between the 2 counties, but also between the townships and our member municipalities. So the idea is that any of your planning groups could look at this and you'd be able to get a breakdown just for Stone Mills Township, just for Greater Napanee, Addington Highlands, Loyalist, to Prince Edward County. But the variance in the incomes was surprising to me.
It is quite a number, yes.
Yeah, just like I say, it's shocking. The others are fairly close or within a few, like 10,000 or so, but then it really drops off. And so information like that could really shape our thinking about creating affordable housing and where that might be, but also who it might serve and what it might need to do. So, a popular way to create new affordable housing now is where people pay 80% of the average market rent. Is that really feasible in all areas? So it goes to future thinking, right?
Absolutely. Any other questions on this? Any questions at all?
Yeah, I have a question, Brian. It's John.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Scott, median income is one thing. And all I've read is your summary. I did not have time to read the full report. Is there any breakdown showing how many people are living below, I guess, what they used to call the poverty line? I don't know what they call it now. People who really are in need of affordable housing. Do we have numbers like that?
Yes, we do. There's actually several sections devoted to, or several pieces devoted to what they call core need housing, and they call it CNH. So throughout the report, there's a lot of places where they just break down like, okay, so all the people in this area who are in core need housing, which is kind of below the poverty line or at or below, there's this many single people, this many single parents, this many families, this many, childless couples kind of things. It breaks it down. Sorry, that might have been a different report with childless couples, but anyway, they break it down into that and sort of what you have, what's now in the area and what's projected to be in the area in 10 years within that core need housing.
Right. And one more, if I may, Brian. So the interesting thing which you already remarked on to me was the preponderance of 1-bedroom housing. Is this because we're seeing far more single individuals or couples without children? What is the trend that reflects? And further on from that, if you get out beyond 10 years, supposing the development community builds to meet that goal of single bedroom housing, Is that useful for future housing stock if we're actually going to start having families with children again? You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Warden Wise and the rest of the committee. Yeah, that's a good point to make. You know, when I looked at this, I was wondering about that when you drill down with the demographics and what the need is. Even I look within our waiting list, and our waiting list is a good indicator of need, but it's not the, you know, completely encompassing everybody in need. But our strongest need is for one bedroom units.
Really?
And yeah, and it's strange now, you know, I think I made a joke with a colleague about that's all the that's counting all the 30 something year olds that are still living with their parents that can't afford a home ownership. But I think, you know, what if I'm a developer reading this, I may be thinking about one bedroom units for sale. And does that make them affordable where a single person or even a couple that can have live in a one bedroom afford it, and then maybe build wealth in that one bedroom. And then when they move on to having children, they've got some wealth to purchase their next home. I'm not sure, but yeah, there does seem to be a huge number. And I think part of that is that the demand right now for one bedrooms is so large that it would take a lot just to catch up to the existing need. So when you spread that out over 10 years, it's capturing that big batch of people that need that right now.
Right.
So does that explain that enough?
Yes, thank you. And of course it refers to one bedroom homes, and I'm pretty sure that mostly means apartments or condominiums. There aren't going to be too many individual houses built with just one bedroom.
No, yeah, there's some models like where you have row housing where you've kind of got a one bedroom on the ground floor and a one bedroom above, and so it's stacked like that. That, you know, there's accessibility issues and all that stuff. But yeah, I would think apartment buildings and condos more for sale rather than rent. Although, of course, we could use all the one bedroom and rentals we could get as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question. It's Brad.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple questions, Scott. I'm just wondering, the 530 new homes for Prince Edward County by 2031, where did that information come from? I guess that's kind of the first question is those homes, are they just homes for everybody, or are they affordable homes, and where did we get that information?
Sure. This information comes from looking at Census Canada or Stats Canada information, and it's information gathered from census polls that have gone out. So this would be from the 2021 census would be the most relevant, but they went back and I think they looked at 2006, 2011, 2016, 2021, and I don't have the information right in front of me, but I think between 2006 or maybe 2011, Prince Edward County, actually, the population dipped a little bit and now it's come back up. So it's based on all the information and sort of the current demand or lack of housing now and what they predict the future demand would be. It's all generated from Stats Canada information.
Okay.
And it includes, and kind of like Warden Wise was talking at his question, there is a breakdown around here's your core housing need, here's your market need, and all that stuff. One of the things the Hart report didn't do, it talks about it, but it talks about more research being needed in that Prince Edward County has a fairly robust tourism industry and has a lot of people buying or even building homes that are their second homes. They aren't their primary residence. And also just locally, we've got the electric car battery plant going in Amherstview and Loyalist Township. And they kind of speculate what that might mean, but they basically are saying, it requires more review. So this is just looking at that Stats Canada raw information and something that the consultant will be doing when they finish the housing needs study is they will be looking into the impacts of the tourism, more decidedly the impacts of maybe the Airbnb industry. And that's very prevalent in Prince Edward County, but it's happening here in Napanee and Loyalist Township. Kingston has an issue, and kind of what happens in Kingston tends to, travel into Loyalist Township. So, and of course the new battery plant there too, and looking at factors that would influence that.
Okay, can I have a quick follow-up and a second question?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So I guess the reason I'm asking is because we've had Watson do a growth projection, and it seems like they're saying we need more, or growth is expanding more in Prince Edward County. So I just want to make sure that we got the right numbers. So I don't know how that worked. But
Yeah.
then the second question, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, through you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so they're looking at the trend, and their data ended in 2021, and lots has changed in Prince Edward County since 2021 with COVID, and you're kind of a full house every weekend kind of thing. And so if somebody was looking at more current information, and perhaps Watson was, they may come to different conclusions. And Watson may have considered sort of the impact of the tourism boom, whereas that's not something that Hart looked at. They just looked at the pure demographics of Prince Edward County.
Okay, can I ask my second question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank Scott for that reply. So the next one, my next question is, we have the Housing Corporation in Prince Edward County, and they've done a bunch of data collecting also to see what people need for the. So it's the Affordable Housing Corporation. So basically, what people are looking for the affordable housing. So was the Hart? Did it contact the Housing Corporation to collect some of that data also?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Newman, rest of the
Yes.
committee. No, they didn't. They just looked at the Stats Canada. They didn't talk to Pellis. They didn't get our waiting list stats. They didn't get anything like that. So they didn't talk. This is like kind of the step one of our housing needs study. Something that the consultant will be doing is consulting with the communities and talking to key stakeholders in the affordable housing world, which will include us, which will include Prince Edward County and the Affordable Housing Corp and a bunch of other people. So I guess, for lack of a better explanation, this is kind of step one of a report that's not completed yet. I think there's lots of good information here, but definitely Loyalist Township's going to want to know, okay, this is great information, but what about the new car battery plant? And Prince Edward County is going to say, okay, consultant, please include the impact of the tourism industry here and things like that. So again, I would hope before the end of the year, but it may not be, we'll have a housing needs study, a complete one that I'll be bringing before you. I just thought this was great information. I also wanted to make sure that everybody had this in case your planning departments, areas, or people that think about new housing, if they wanted to use this, it could be a valuable resource. It's also will be a valuable resource for any developer, let alone the developers I'm most interested in, which are developers who want to create affordable housing. I've had a few developers that have been asking for this report for a while, and now that it's public, we'll be able to share it with them, and that will help inform them in what they build or propose to build as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? So we have a recommendation here to note and
yes. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I need to speak up faster. I'm not as fast with my mute button. May I have a question?
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Scott, just curious on just one recommendation I would just like to put forward is I'd like to see like the consultant reach out with Eastern Wardens Caucus, just because I saw their new strategic plan go through and a lot had to do with the housing, and I think they're doing some fantastic work, or they always seem to be doing some fantastic work whenever we get updates from them. So I just think they have a good pulse on what our community is, especially like agreeing with the battery plant and everyone's needs. And I'd like to see them consulted and something put forward, if that's not stepping outside
Sure.
of bounds.
A goal I have is to get a draft of the RFP out to our housing working group, possibly before the end of June. And I'll just make sure that's part of it.
Okay,
One of
perfect.
the
Thank you.
groups. We identify some specific groups that we want them to consult with, and we'll just make sure that the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus is part of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes, go
could
ahead.
follow, it's Steve Ferguson again. Just following along what Sam mentioned, I presented the EOWC strat plan and the infrastructure deficit report that the EOWC created. I think is sobering reading, particularly the infrastructure deficit report. But the strat plan, I think, is worth reviewing, and as Sam suggests, reach out to the EOWC for additional information. The staff members there would be more than happy to help. John is a member of the EOWC as well, so I'm sure he can attest to the value of the organization and the research it does. So, just one comment about the what the demand may be as we go forward. We've got, as Brad mentioned, the Watson report, and the Stats Canada information that was part of this report, but there's additional information that's been provided, particularly by the Ministry of Finance, concerning what housing demand may be by census division. And Prince Edward County, as an example, is, according to the 2022, the projection from 2022 to 2031 has grown to 1,969 units from 1,500. So my point is that projections are always a moving target. Very difficult to predict.
For sure.
Thank you.
All righty. Any other questions or comments? And seeing none, we have a motion to note and receive, or a recommendation to note and receive. Yeah.
I'll move it.
Okay. Brad, and seconded by Councillor John Wise. Sorry, Warden. God, I hate this thing. Okay. So moving on to emergency shelter solutions. Item number 3. That report. Oh, did we get a motion?
Didn't
We had
call it.
first and second. Sorry, we had a first and second. Are all in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. On to item number 3, emergency shelter solutions. And again, that is by Scott.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You get to listen to this raspy voice for even longer. So this is just a report that about our emergency shelter solutions. And I've kind of tried to give the committee an idea of not only what we're doing, but what's being tried and attempted out there. And, dealing with the homelessness crisis is relatively new. It's not new in that we've been addressing homelessness for decades here, but what is new is the explosion in the number of people experiencing homelessness. And also what's new is the funding available to help address the problem. So I've just talked about a few things in the preamble. I think I talk about what different type of housing solutions And then I kind of talk about some of the other crises, and I think most people are aware of the big opioid crises that Belleville had in one day, where there were 22 people that were victims of drug poisonings. And I talked to a coworker from Hastings County, and they said you could kind of see, a new episode every 5 to 10 minutes where a dealer with bad substances made their way through the downtown area. So I got looking around. I'm always looking around at what other places are doing, because it's an interest I have, but also I'm really interested in solutions or in strategies that provide good solutions. So I've identified some here from the City of London and Peterborough and Kingston. I try to keep it fairly local. Under emergency shelter cost comparisons, I break it down sort of what it was costing us. A person could look at, our motel system, where if somebody's homeless, we can set them up in a motel, and it's only $91 a night. But it doesn't come with any counseling or support or anybody pointing them in the right way the next day. And unfortunately, there's 57 people across the Palace area who are banned from those hotels because they've either stayed there and the motel owner has had a negative experience, or they visited somebody who was staying there, and as a result, the motel owner had a negative experience. Transitional housing. This is the two programs that we operate. So it works out to be about a little under $500 a month per person for people who are staying there. Incidentally, in our when we look at homelessness, I think there's 74 people on our what we call our by name homelessness list, and 50 of those 74 people are living in transitional housing. Because transitional housing isn't permanent, we still have to count them as homeless, but 2/3 of the people homeless in the whole Palace area are in transitional housing. I guess probably you could count a little more, because this is just counting the transitional housing program Palace runs. You could add another 9 people from Leeward House onto that total. And so we do have temporary housing for most of the homeless people in our area. I just have to talk a little bit more, and hopefully nobody's getting tired of me talking about this, but we have this program in our LHC where 1 in every 10th vacancy is filled by somebody from an unhoused person who's on our by name list. And I think so far we have had 8 people move into those places, and when they move in, they're under what we call an occupancy agreement. It's different than a lease in that an occupancy agreement, there's more flexibility about when they would leave. We wouldn't have to go to the landlord tenant board, but we've had 4 of the 8 people sign a lease, which means their homelessness is solved. We have another 3 where we anticipate in a few months where things are going well. I think we've had 11 households move into the LHC, and a couple of them haven't worked out, and some of them have been really really kind of a handful, but we're learning as we go along. And so it's kind of awesome to have a program that's ending homelessness. I just wish we could do it quicker and we had more spaces, but we've got a formula that works. My job and job for all the staff here at Palace are to figure out ways to accelerate that and to solve people's homelessness even more quickly. Break down our warming centers that we had: Morningstar in Napanee, Hope in Picton. And I just leave you with a little piece when you're looking at all those costs about permanent housing. Permanent supportive housing is a good deal. It's only $22,500 a year to support a household in a supportive environment. So it's based on a mortgage over 25 years. The problematic largest hurdle to creating more permanent supportive housing is the initial capital costs. And I kind of outlined that, and to in theory permanently house all 74 people on our that are homeless in the Pellis area now would cost about $25 million. And if somehow committee said we had $25 million and committee gave me the go ahead to go and do that, we'd still need a 3-year plan for what we do with people who are homeless until those units were ready. And by the way, just so you know, having all 74 unhoused people living in one environment would be too chaotic. But this is just some theoretical principles here, and just to point out the massive costs of all of this. But all of the housing that's discussed above that final paragraph on permanent supportive housing is temporary, and except for those ones in the LHC unit. So anyway, sorry, I've rambled on a little bit. That's it.
No problem. I was actually in Ottawa not that long ago, and met with some people from Finland, and they had started this process of building the permanent supportive housing back in 1985, and they had somewhere around 25,000 homeless people. They're down to less than 700 for the entire country of Finland. And it does work. But their housing, from what I understood or gathered, it was funded by the federal government of Finland. And I don't know if we could ever get our provincial counterparts involved to do this. Like you say, it's definitely a savings for sure to build a permanent setup for these people. So, any other questions? Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on your emergency housing, so it's kind of a two-part question. So I'm looking at the bottom of, I guess, top of page 92. So we got 57 people that were banned from the motel system. And those 57 people, I guess, spent a night at the Morning Star for the overnight accommodation or a warming center or whatever. And I see that how many of those people are from the county, and how much of the 107 nights that were spent at the motel, how many were in the county? Where I'm going with this is we're having one person a night at the Hope Warming Center. Can we not have those people go to the Hope Center instead of the motel?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you to Councilor
Yes.
Lyman, that's the committee. Great question. So if the warming center is open in either spot, we would send them there before the motel system. So the warming centers are only open during the cold parts of the year. So this would be after. I can take a look at where those 107 nights were spent. It's in both places. And, so some unhoused homeless people have behavior issues. Not all people do. Not all homeless people have an addiction issue or a mental health issue. But some people do. And, left unassisted in a motel, sometimes their behaviors are negative. And we've got people who can't be in any motels in Lennox and Addington, and they can't be in any motels in Prince Edward County because we tried it there and it didn't go well there either. And we get people who, two people living together, they're in a romantic relationship, it suddenly ends and the person's homeless that night and they won't have any money till their next paycheck. So we can put them up in a motel, the money comes, whatever, we help them out, whatever, or they just need help for, it's 4:30, they don't know where they're going to spend the night tonight. We help them out for a night, they're fine. We had one person that was or a family in the motel for a couple of weeks while we sorted out a solution, and they were fine. They can go back to any motel in the system. We have lots of people that use the motel system that their behavior is fine and they can return. We also, I guess I should also clarify, all these spots at Morning Star Mission and the Hope Center, they were for single individuals. So if during the winter we had a family come in or even anybody with a child, we didn't feel that the warming centers were appropriate for children, and the warming centers felt the same way. So we would set that family up in a motel too. So did that answer your question, Councilman?
Yeah, no, that does, yeah.
Okay, I
thanks.
thought I did, but yeah, hopefully I got to it. All right.
Council, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, Scott, you kind of talked a little bit about Belleville and their opioid crisis, and I guess I'm just thinking a little bit, trying to think ahead a bit. Just, I'm curious on, are any of our staff through this funding that work in these centers? I know that we just fund it and we don't have a lot of, say, maybe how staff get trained, but do you know if any are being trained specifically to intervene in an opioid crisis, or if they have the proper like naloxone, thank you, kits available just in case an emergency happens, that they're prepared and they have the proper tools and we're giving them all the tools that they need to succeed?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you to Councilor Brandenhorst and the rest of the committee. Yes, they do have the training. That's an important piece of it. All the people all the positions that we fund in the community that are dealing directly with people who are homeless, like dealing with encampments, dealing with people that might be using opioids, dealing with people in our transitional housing, they've all been trained. And I know Lennox County just recently had somebody come in to train people for that. We had staff participate in that. So definitely they're aware, very aware of the like how to administer it, how to recognize if there's a problem, how to administer it, the reactions they'll see when the person regains consciousness, when to contact emergency services, like call an ambulance, things like that. And they've been great because some of the people in other agencies that are connected, for example, with addictions and mental health or a community health center, they were ahead of Pellis on that training curve. So I started last January and we already had staff that were very well versed in the naloxone, and so did the community workers because it's such an important piece.
Yeah, and it just helps break down stigmas too, to what is being done. I mean, I do research also, and you see some fantastic stuff coming out of Alberta trying to really destigmatize having those kits and having the training done and the help that could be done. But
and the number of people they save, there's it's not a statistic we keep track of, but a great number of those people, and sometimes it's the same people being saved more than once or whatever, but hey, they're still alive.
And it is important. I know with some statistics with younger individuals, the use of opioids and hard use drugs are becoming a lot more evident in high schools, and I don't know what's happening or if it's more of a mental health crisis right across the board, but I know it's a lot more youth getting a lot more access at a much younger age than I think that is expected. So that's pretty scary. So it's always nice to know that as many people are getting trained in as possible. I do have one more quick question just about the warming centers and more towards, I guess, the hope. And I understand it's a trial period, but just what are some ways that, sorry, not a trial, it's a pilot. But what are some more of the cost-effective ways that you think could be done to help these systems be as efficient as possible without, I kind of liked what you said, like we're not trying to, I think it was towards something else, but you were saying that we're not trying to get people homed and signing lease much too quickly, because then you're not doing your jobs as efficiently and as successfully as possible. And I would hate to be kicking people out of using warming centers as quickly and inefficiently as possible. So I guess I'm not saying cut corners with money, but is there any ways to be more effective? Sorry for my ramble.
Oh, that's a good question, Mr. Chair, through you to Councilor Branderhorst. Yes, so um, uh, um, we're looking at different models that work. Our transitional housing program has been successful. It takes about a year and a half, takes about a year for somebody to kind of leave their street life behind, for lack of a better word, and whether that's their drug use with the street life or just hanging out or some of those behaviors. It takes about a year, then takes about another 6 months for people to be like, oh, well, now that I'm kind of getting my life figured out, what do I want to do and what direction will I take? So we're finding it takes about a year and a half, but we've been really successful in ending people's opioid use. And initially, when they first moved in, we were successful in decreasing it, not always ending it. But after about that year cycle, sometimes quicker, we have people that have been in their transitional housing program for more than 2 years who still, have a bad weekend every now and then, sort of thing. But yeah, when I look at Leeward House in Prince Edward County, that seems to be working well. And it's too new to tell, but they may experience similar successes that we've had in our transitional housing, and they may recognize the same timelines, a year and a half for somebody to be ready. In our transitional housing program, one of the issues we have now is with those 50 people, we have about 10 of those people who are ready to move on to more independent housing, but they've got $390 to put towards the rent each month. And so that's the block. And it's the same block that's blocking all kinds of people not in our transitional housing from getting affordable housing. But yeah, definitely looking at different strategies. And that's kind of what I've laid out here. Here's a bunch of things people are using, and some communities has been successful with certain programs and some communities haven't. So I don't know if that answered your question, Councilor Branderhurst.
A little bit, I guess it's
Okay.
More part of my question was like, and I think I misworded it, was more with the warming center specifically, what are the cost effective options that you kind of say that you would like to try out, or are you still just working on kind of what you hinted to at the end, which was trial and error process of seeing what other municipalities / areas / organizations are doing and seeing what they are and trying to implement those and moving forward?
Sure. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. So definitely when we look at the number one cost for any warming center is staff, because you have to, and attracting staff that want to work from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. Morningstar used to do it with volunteers. It just became too difficult to get volunteers to adequately staff the place. So that's the number one cost. So when Morningstar and Hope Center both had 2 staff on each night. Morningstar was definitely busier, so the cost per person is significantly less. But regardless of whether you have 1 person or 22 people, you can't have 1 staff, you need 2 staff. So that's when you look at the Hope Center and its cost per night or per person, it is higher, but that's just because it wasn't as busy and they had similar costs of staffing.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this one? So we do have a staff recommendation to note and receive Scott's report. Councillor Wise, I'm so sorry, John. Warden Wise and Councillor Brandenhorst. All in favor? That motion's carried. Okay, Pinecrest Housing. God, we get to hear from Scott again.
You'll be glad to know, Mr. Chair and everybody else, this is my last report, and I think it's a quick one. This is specifically, it's got 2 purposes, specifically to send a letter of support for the Pinecrest housing development in Bloomfield. And more generally to provide a similar letter of support to other developers. Developers like these. I like it when a developer wants a letter of support because it means they want to partner with us. And a private developer that partners with the service manager, it unlocks more funding that's available to them through CMHC. So we want their support. We want them as a partner, and they want us as a partner
Nice.
because they're interested in providing affordable housing, but also it unlocks better and greater grant potential.
Okay,
So my
Go
request
ahead,
would be
Warden.
specifically for Pinecrest, but then there's a couple of other developers that have already asked for letters of support that I'd like to provide this to them, because if that furthers their application through CMHC and gets housing here, that's fantastic.
Absolutely, Warden Wise.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move receipt and approve the release of the letter and approve Pellis provide future requests for letters of support to affordable housing projects in the service area.
I get a seconder for that. Mayor Ferguson, all in favor? And that motion is carried.
Thank you for listening to me and your continued support.
Yes, your reports are absolutely amazing, Scott. I really enjoy reading them.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next, Councillor Brandenhorst, you had a question? Okay. Okay, so next on the list, we got the CWELCC funding approach timeline. And who is that?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's Pam.
That's Pam. Oh, there you are. Hi, Pam.
Good morning. So I don't really have any much to highlight to this report, but happy to answer any questions that councillors may have.
No questions. Okay, can I get a notion to note and receive? Councillor Davison, second by Councillor Nyman. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay. Next, we have the Meadow Lane renewal, mortgage renewal. And that is Mark Day. I see you, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. This is up for mortgage renewal for Meadow Lane. It was last renewed in 2019. As part of the Social Housing Reform Act, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is responsible for negotiating the renewals. And they do require a resolution passed by the board, which is you for the Housing Corporation, for the Pellis Housing Corporation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just for information, the last renewal, obviously everyone knows the interest rates were lower. It was at 2.5%. The estimate I put in the report was based on just current market at 5.71. Hopefully the province will be able to negotiate a very favorable rate due to the fact they do this across the board, across the province for other housing corps. So I'm just looking for Pellis board's approval and passing the recommendation. It's a long-winded one, so if you can just move it as what it said and instead of reading, it might be easier for you to pass.
Alrighty. Warden Wise.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we approve the mortgage negotiation as noted in the recommendation in Mark Day's report.
I can second.
Okay, Councillor Brandenhorst. All in favor? That motion is carried. Excellent. Okay. We also have a staff recommendation to include the Meadow Lane mortgage renewal. We did that. Matters for information, the National Housing Strategy Fund. And who would like to speak on that? I guess that's just
Mr. Chair, this is just informing you that this was a sort of a follow-up we received a letter, I think in our last committee or perhaps the one before that, we talked about how this funding was on hold. And this is, a letter that's saying, it's the province and federal government have kind of solved their issues, and there's going to be more information down the road, but they'll be unlocking our access to these funds. The COCHI and OFI funding, the rules might change. And the other one is just the COB, or Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, is a rent supplement program that we hope to get access to soon. It's basically
Well,
what it's.
Go ahead, Warden Wise.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Scott, does this mean that at some indeterminate date, and I hope the immediate future, you've got to rearrange all the funding that you've already rearranged because this funding was delayed?
Mr. Chair, through you to Warden Wise and everybody else, yes, it does. And you'll notice in that first piece about the homelessness prevention plan, we asked for your permission to be able to reallocate within that. So if we can pay for some rent supplements, for example, through some of the COCHI or OFI money, we may do that, and then we can do other things with the homelessness prevention. So it's just, and it's, it'll probably come, mid-July, and they'll ask for, our investment plan by the end of July, and we'll be doing that without involving, without a meeting, but I hope not. I hope it's very clear, and I hope they give us lots of flexibility. The homelessness prevention program, that funding, we've got lots of flexibility, so we're hoping for more flexibility. So we'll see what happens. But yes, we will have to rejig some numbers.
Yeah, well, I sympathize. What a massive amount of time has been, I would say, wasted. Not wasted because you've got to do it, but it could have been a lot more productive use of our staff time. However, I hope it all happens smoothly. Thank you.
Okay, so then on to the performance metrics. And that was go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, we'll just need a motion to note and receive that.
Okay. All right.
You can include that in my
Warden.
comment if you want, Brian. I'll note and receive.
Yes. Okay, Warden Wise notes received, seconded by Councillor Davison. All in favor of that one? Okay. Motion is carried. And then what happened to that screen? John, this is all your fault. You told me I should have been in computers a long time ago.
You've been blaming me for years on that, Brian.
Only
Getting
about
old.
40, only about 43 though, which means we're both getting old.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we are. Okay, this one was prepared by Kent. Is Kent? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. This report is to provide an update on the performance metrics at Palace. There was a slight increase in the Ontario Works caseload in April compared to March. The caseload currently sits at 934 cases. The number of clients on the caseload reporting paid employment increased by less than a percentage in March. The province has seen similar trends as Palace in the performance metrics. Within children's services, the number of fee subsidy applications received in March and April were similar compared to the applications received in 2023 for the same months. The number of children supported through fee subsidy increased slightly in April compared to March, ending with a total of 154 children and 88 households being supported. Within housing services placed 10 households in rent-geared income housing over the past 2 months. Palace has received an average of 25 housing applications per month since the beginning of the year. There are currently 74 active individuals on the by name list. After staff completed a review of the housing waitlist earlier this year, the dashboard has been updated to reflect the changes in the waitlist numbers. So as of April, there were 379 individuals on the waitlist. I'd be happy to take any questions on the performance metrics at this time.
Any questions for Kent at all? Okay, we have a recommendation to note and receive. Councillor Davison, seconded by Councillor Brandenhorst. All in favor? And that motion is carried. And the next thing we need is a motion to adjourn. Warden Wise, seconded by Brett. Brandon Horst, sir, Councilor Brandon Horst, all in favor? Thank you. And that's everything.